2021 Lexus ES350 F Sport. Let's get started here. The main changes that they made for the 2021 ES models is they made blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert all as standard here. So those are the main changes, but also we've got the brand new addition of a ES250 all-wheel drive and a blackline trim level, if you're interested in that. But yeah, the all-wheel drive ES250, I've said this multiple times, I would rather just save the money, go with either the Camry all-wheel drive or an Avalon all-wheel drive. That's what I would go for. But anyway, that's up to you. You know, it depends on what kind of discounts, etc., that you can pull off on an ES250 if it makes sense to you. It will be the quieter vehicle with the better interior, so there you go. But anyway, you can make that decision for yourself. For me, the ES is truly at its best when you get it either in the 350 or the 300H. This is what you should be focused on, either the buttery smooth V6 like you see here, or the hybrid, which is also extremely smooth. One of the best hybrids I've ever driven, period. But anyway, this is the F Sport, this is the 350. Let's get started here. Exterior wise, I personally really dig the exterior of these vehicles. Okay, I love the spindle grille. It looks really aggressive. It looks different. It looks bold. It stands out amongst all the other plebeian vehicles out on the road here. I recommend this car so many times to so many people because it has this flagship demeanor to it. And when I tell people about this car, people are like, oh, but the grille, I don't like how it looks. Dude, stop. This thing looks incredible. Okay, it's a really sharp looking ride. It looks really good in person. Check it out. Give it a chance. To me, it looks elegant, but again, continue to leave your thoughts below. It's always fun to hear it, so there you go. But anyway, let's transition over into the driving segment now, okay? 3.5 liter V6 engine, the classic. This is what you want. This is probably not gonna last for much longer, so take advantage of this motor while you can. Produces 301 horsepower and like 267, 268 pounds-feet of torque. I forget exactly what it is. And I think 0 to 60 is about 6.6 seconds. Not bad at all. Made it to an 8-speed automatic transmission that I love very much. Many people, they brush this thing off. They don't understand this. You know, they hear 6.6 seconds and it just doesn't make sense to people. If you're looking at this like it's some insane sports sedan, well, you're sadly mistaken, my friend. That's not what this is. In fact, this is probably something even better than a traditional sports sedan because this is all completely usable out on the street. And here's the difference between this V6 and like the Avalon or Camry V6. This engine is the smoothest iteration of this engine, okay? It doesn't get any smoother than this. Also, when you have it in like the Sport Plus and, well, paddle shifters are pretty worthless in here. I'll just demonstrate for you. This engine sounds the best, okay, when you're kind of winding it out. Only detriment, and this is something I noticed with a lot of, you know, front-wheel drive vehicles with a lot of power sent to it. When you stomp on the throttle, right, you can kind of notice it. I don't know if you would call it torque steer, but it kind of wanders a bit before it takes off. So that's something I noticed with like the Maxima V6s, of course, and the Avalon that I just recently driven. So that's just something that's going to naturally happen. It's predictable. You know what the car is doing at all times. Don't worry about it. It's just natural for a vehicle with this much horsepower being sent to simply the front wheels, okay? And yeah, don't bother with the paddles. It's not really worth your time. It's just going to auto upshift for you. The brakes are tremendous. That's an upgrade for the F Sport models. Steering is bang on. And the best part about it is compared to the 2019 F Sport. Initially in that review, I said that maybe don't spring for the F Sport because it kind of takes away from the character of the ES and what it's trying to do. I still do kind of maintain that the luxury or even the ultra luxury trim levels of the ES is kind of the ones to go for with the 18-inch wheels. What you have here are 19 inches with 235 wide tires in all four corners. But I'll be honest though, this F Sport ES, I don't know what they've done to it for the 2021 model year, but this maintains the flagship quality that I've always praised with the ES. Okay, this is like a $50K car, right? But what you get here for that money is this feels far better than anything else in its class. Like, this feels like a 100K automobile. And initially when I drove the 2019 model, it kind of stripped away from that six-figure driving feel that I've always praised this vehicle for. But I'm glad to say that they kind of brought that back for this 2021 F Sport that I'm driving here, while still giving you that extra handling edge. Because when you watch my Avalon video, I said that the Avalon handles a little bit better than the ES, and that's true. But now this also handles like the Avalon, but it still maintains that buttery feel, that smooth driving, and that smooth ride quality. It's all here, right? The Avalon I drove only had 17-inch wheels, and this with the 19s rides better. Okay, this is the F Sport with the suspension that's been tuned specifically for this vehicle. Okay, so you got the handling, you got the uncompromised ride. The only thing is, it's missing the double pane glass that you might get in the luxury trim levels of the ES. So when you're out on the highway, you're going to get a little bit more wind noise compared to the luxury trim levels of the ES. It's not a big deal. It's still a very quiet machine. Hardly any tire noise, no problems there. But yeah, again, with the luxury trim levels, with the 18-inch wheels, it's just going to be a little bit more softer, a little bit more quieter, and that's what I'm saying, man. That's where this vehicle is at its best. But don't get me wrong, those luxury trim levels, those non-F Sport ESs, they don't handle that well. I mean, this isn't like a sports sedan or anything like that. Don't miss the point with this. When I say good handling, I mean that this has a smooth and predictable handling characteristic that's good for street driving, for street speeds. Okay, this feels good and composed. With the non-F Sports, it's going to be peeling out, okay, when you drive it harder. Again, like I mentioned, a lot of power being sent to the front. The way they managed to give us this tranquil ride quality is by stripping away any and all sporting demeanor, stripping away all the handling. Like, if you drove a 2017 ES, that's going to handle better than these newer model ESs, except for the F Sport. A standard ES from 2017 versus a standard ES from like 2019 and above, the 2017 is going to handle a little bit better. Because again, that was a little bit more of a stiffer vehicle. In the real world, driving like a douche, I'm getting about 19 mpgs, which is not bad at all. Okay, I'm being foot to the floor in this thing, and 18, 19 mpg is not bad. You'll definitely be into the 20 mpg range if you drive it like a normal human. And some final little specs for you. You know, we're talking about 3,700 pounds curb weight here for these ES350s. And we got a McPherson front suspension, and we have a trailing wishbone rear suspension design. It rides beautiful. That's what's important. It's got a 0.29 coefficient of drag. Again, none of these things really matter. This vehicle is beyond specs. This is a serene, real-world driving experience. Now let's go ahead and let's transition over into this interior segment now. Okay, interior, what are we working with here? I've covered this multiple times before with my other ES reviews, but what this is kind of like a budget version of the LS interior, and I mean that in a very good way. Okay, the LS 500 interior is probably my most favorite interior space, aside from the S-Class interior and the LC 500 interior. Okay, these are like my top three interiors for me, and this mimics that very well. You got the classic 12.3-inch Lexus screen that many people hate, but I personally love using. Okay, the touchpad, one of my more favorite infotainments to use, if I'm gonna be honest with you. You got the Apple CarPlay and the Android Auto. Some owners like using this infotainment. Most people hate it. So, you know, just because I like it doesn't mean that you will. Go into a Lexus showroom, try it out for yourself. Now, because this is the F Sport, you have a much more sportier interior. Not just because it's the red interior, which that's I'm a sucker for that, but the seats are different. You got sportier seats in here, but they're very comfortable. Don't get me wrong. Non-fatiguing. This whole car is non-fatiguing. Okay, the way this car rides and behaves, coupled with these seats, you can do many thousands of miles and not be bothered by it. So yeah, I like the F Sport seats, no problems there. The steering wheel, it's perforated, it's leather. I got the paddle shifters, which are pointless in this car, but anyway, I think most people are going to love the steering wheel. It feels great in the hands. It feels girthy, if you will. So no flat bottom though. I believe you got a 17 speaker ML audio in here, 1800 watts. Sounds excellent. Definitely try to opt for the ML audio if you can, the Mark Levinson. For sure worth it. It's one of the best sounding audio systems you can get in a vehicle. It doesn't sound as good, of course, as the LS500 MLs, but that's to be expected. You got one touch up and down windows for all 4 windows. It's not double pane, but it is of decent thickness. So again, it's a quiet vehicle, don't get me wrong. Where this lacks against the LS500 interior is, of course, some of the harder touch plastics that they're going to use near the infotainment screen. But that's mainly because it's not a touch screen. You're not going to interact with that area of the vehicle, so I don't mind it. Again, for $50K, they've done more than enough. Okay, when you compare this to something like a C-Class Mercedes, dude, a C-Class Benz feels like a total tin can compared to this. And I'm being honest here. Gauge cluster, you got the moving F-Sport gauges, right? That many people like, that mechanical one that you can shift over to the right if you want to. Shows you some great information, easy to use, easy to understand, no problems there. All the technology, in my opinion, is easy to use. And one advantage compared to the LS500 is you actually have physical buttons for the heated and cooled seats, as well as the heated steering wheel. So you have buttons for that. You also have a rear sunshade blocker, very baller feature. You got the wireless charging pad, USB, USB-C, all that good stuff. 2 cup holders, place to store your phone. You do not have a panoramic sunroof, you just have a regular one, which is fine by me. Rear seating space is excellent. It's very close to the LS500 in terms of rear seating space. So if you are a real estate agent, definitely a vehicle to take advantage of, I would say. And you have some vents back there to play with, so there you go. The trunk space is gigantic, but you can't fold down the rear seats, but you can in the Avalon. So if that's important to you, well, the Avalon's got 60/40 folding seats. This doesn't, but this is the way more baller, prestigious, pimp automobile that's quieter, more comfortable. Yeah, as I mentioned, conclusions, I've covered this vehicle multiple times in my other videos of the ES with the other trim levels, so definitely check that out. But this is a vehicle I recommend to people very often. Again, the only negatives to this automobile is the lack of a folding rear seat, and when you floor this vehicle initially, it can kind of wander a little bit before it gets up and goes. But again, nobody's going to be driving this vehicle that hard. For all intents and purposes, this is the luxury car that I recommend to people the most. So take advantage of it, lease it, do what you got to do. And for 2021, absolutely, if you want the F-Sport, go for it. It's a vehicle that I do recommend now. It makes sense. They haven't compromised here. Speed is great in the real world, and it gives you an enhanced handling dynamic, and it's still comfortable and quiet enough. So if you want, take advantage of it. But that's it for my review. Thanks again for watching. Take care and goodbye.